In the action in the Gulf of Sidra, the United States Navy deployed aircraft carrier groups in the disputed Gulf of Sidra in the Mediterranean Sea. Libya claimed that the entire Gulf was their territory, at 32 degrees 30 N, with an exclusive 62 nautical miles fishing zone. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi asserted this in 1973 and dubbed it the Line of Death. The United States claimed its rights to conduct naval operations in international waters, a standard of 12 nautical mile territorial limit from a country's shore. Background: tensions between the United States and Libya heightened after the hijacking of TWA Flight 847 on 14 June 1985 and the Roman Vienna airport attacks on 27 December that same year. The United States claimed that the Libyan leader was involved in these actions through his support of the alleged perpetrator, Palestinian terrorist Abu Nidal. Some suspect that Nidal was working for both U.S. and Israeli intelligence. At the same time, Libya began the installation of SAR-5 surface-to-air missile batteries and radars they received from the Soviet Union in late 1985, to bolster their air defense. As the U.S. Navy had done for several years, they continued to challenge Libya's claim to the Gulf of Sidra by crossing the so-called Line of Death, following the terrorist attacks in Roman Vienna. The U.S. Navy began several freedom of navigation operations in the area around Libya in an operation named Attain Document. The first two parts of the operation being held from 26 to 30 January and 12 to 15 February without incident. The third part of the operation began on 23 March with an armada from the United States 6th Fleet consisting of 3 aircraft carriers, US America, US Coral Sea and US Saratoga, 5 cruisers, 6 frigates, 12 destroyers, 250 aircraft and 27,000 personnel conducting 3 carrier operations near the Gulf. The US Detroit and the US Savannah were the fuel, ammunition, and combat stores replenishment ships that supplied the entire battle group. Previously, Gaddafi had made threats that he would shoot down or destroy U.S. aircraft or ships moving over the Line of Death. According to U.S. Secretary of State George P. Shultz, America's position was quite clear. There would be no restriction on U.S. naval movements through international waters. By crossing the Line of Death, American forces were asserting their right to keep international sea lanes open and conduct naval and air exercises in every part of the globe. During the operations held in January and February, the United States Navy had made 130 intercepts of Libyan fighters in the airspace over the Gulf of Sidra, although neither side opened fire. Hostilities. On 23 March 1986, U.S. aircraft from the 3 carriers crossed the Line of Death and began operating in the Gulf. On 24 March at 600, US Ticonderoga, accompanied by 2 destroyers, US Scott and US Karen, moved south of the line, covered by fighter aircraft. A Libyan missile installation near Sirte launched 2 Soviet-made SAR-5 Gammon surface-to-air missiles at 7:52 toward F-148 Tomcats of America, SVF-102. The missiles missed their target and fell harmlessly into the sea. 2 additional SAR-5 missiles were launched but were jammed by an EA-6B Prowler. 2 hours later, 2 MiG-23s took off from Benina Air Base with orders to intercept and shoot down some of the U.S. fighters. Before the Libyan aircraft could get close enough, a US E-2C Hawkeye detected them and alerted 2 F-14s from the F-33, which intercepted the MiGs at 20,000 feet. The Libyans began aggressive head-on maneuvering in an effort to get into firing positions on the 2 F-14s. This was a clear sign of hostile intentions. The F-14 wing leader reported excessive hostile actions and intentions, which led the air warfare commander aboard the US, John F. Kennedy, to give the pilots the signal, warning yellow. Weapons hold. This meant the F-14s could open fire if necessary. An intense dogfight ensued, though without any missiles being fired. The F-14s dropped to 5,000 feet, where they had a distinct advantage over the MiG-23s and positioned themselves between the Sun and the Libyans. The F-14s moved into a 6 o'clock position behind the hostile MiGs, locked onto them with radar and acquired AIM-9 sidewinder tones, which meant they were ready to shoot the Libyans down. The MiGs moved off, seeming to follow a return course to their base. However, one of them reversed course, turning against the F-14s. The F-14 wing leader acquired the MiG, and requested permission to open fire. Before permission could be granted, the MiG-23 turned away and headed south. Several Libyan patrol boats headed out towards the U.S. battle group, and the Americans responded by sending up aircraft to counter them. When one of the patrol boats locked onto American aircraft with its fire control radar, US Richmond K. Turner, a Leahy-class cruiser destroyer leader who had been serving as anti-aircraft radar picket ship defending the carrier group's right flank, responded by firing an AGM-84 Harpoon missile, striking the vessel, damaging it and setting it ablaze. It was subsequently towed back to Benghazi. This was the first surface-to-surface firing of a Harpoon missile in combat. The US Saratoga launched A-7 Corsair II aircraft armed with HARM missiles from Attack Squadron VA-83. A-6 Intruder aircraft armed with Harpoon missiles and cluster bombs from VA-85 and each 6Bs from VAQ-132. US America had A-6S from VA-34 and each 6Bs from the Marine Squadron VMAQ-2, and US Coral Sea had A-6S from VA-55 and each 6Bs from VAQ-135 in the air. These were supported by several E-2Cs, F-14s, F/A-18s and Ka-6Ds. The first airstrikes occurred around 1926 when two A-6 Intruders from VA-34 found a French-built FACM-class La Combattante patrol boat. The ship was first disabled by a Harpoon missile fired by one of the A-6 Intruders from VA-34 and then destroyed by Intruders from VA-85 using Rockeye cluster bombs. 40 minutes later, F-14s, F/A-18s, A-7s and each 6Bs headed towards the SAR-5 site near Sirte at low level and suddenly climbed, which caused the Libyans to activate their radars and launch missiles at the incoming aircraft. This prompted the A-7s to launch several HARM missiles. The strike formation then descended to 30 meters above sea level and turned back. It is unknown if any of the U.S. missiles struck their intended targets, but A-6s from VA-86 and VA-55 turned to engage several Libyan missile boats. At around 2155, two A-6s from VA-55 attacked Nanuchka-class corvette Ain Zakit, which was heading towards the US Yorktown, prompting CG-48 to vector the Intruders to deploy Harpoon missiles, one of which hit the boat, causing massive damages. At the same time, Yorktown fired two Harpoon missiles at another Combatant II-class boat, disabling it. At approximately midnight, the Libyans launched several SAR-2s and SAR-5s, this time at the American A-6s and A-7s, which responded by heading towards the coast. A-7s from VA-83 launched HARM missiles, disabling several Libyan radars. Three more SAR-5s were launched from Sirte, with a single SAR-2 launched near Benghazi. At 0730, another Libyan Nanuchka-class corvette was intercepted by A-6s from VA-55 and was disabled by Rockeye munitions. The corvette was later sunk by a Harpoon missile launched from a VA-85 A-6E. The operation was terminated after this strike with no losses to the Americans. 35 seamen were killed and there were an unknown number of material losses to the Libyans.